Right, let's now talk about Maximilien Robespierre and the Reign of Terror. It's one of the most iconic periods of the French Revolution. Now, before we go too far with this, I want to acknowledge a couple of books. I'm going to be referring to information that's come out of this book by Heinemann and this book here by Cambridge. Both really good books. If you ever get a chance, there's some great sources in there. That's where I'm coming from, and I probably should acknowledge my sources a little bit more for you from time to time. So when we're talking about the Reign of Terror, we're really talking about the time of the Committee for Public Safety, or the Committee of Public Safety, and this is its crest. The Committee of Public Safety is the part of the French government that runs France in a time of emergency when they're fighting a war against Britain, Austria, Prussia. France is under pressure. The National Convention, the government of France, is really worried that it's going to lose control of the revolution, lose control of, I guess, the security of France. And so it sets up a number of committees. And the most important one is this one here, you can see in the image, the Committee of Public Safety, each of them wearing their revolutionary caps. The most important political leader of France during this time is Maximilien Robespierre. We'll talk about him in a moment. And this is the period in which we see France really being associated, and the revolution really being associated with the guillotine. And this British artwork, etching, again by James Gilray, showing the world on fire, the sans-culottes drunk on power, slaughtering royals, slaughtering the clergy. You can see all the symbols down the bottom of what they're trampling over, the Bible, the cross, religious symbols. There's nooses, there's blood-stained axes. No God, no religion, no king, no constitution. All the rules are gone now. So you might want to go back and have a look at that source. It's a fascinating artwork. We'll probably look at it in class a little bit too. So let's get our head around what happens during this Reign of Terror. So we're talking about the period between 1793 and 1794. Often people say that the revolution ends when Maximilien Robespierre is executed in 1794, but some historians take it as far as 1795. During this time, France is run by an elected government called the National Convention, but the convention hands over power to protect France to executive committees, and each of these committees are controlled by radical revolutionaries. Their moderates are now gone. Those who wanting relatively minor changes to French society have now been taken from power, and the radical revolutionaries are called Jacobins. They're from the Jacobin Club, named after the place they met. The most powerful of the executive committees, and there were a few of them, was the Committee of Public Safety, and it was the committee that was led by the Jacobin Maximilien Robespierre. So this artwork over here talks about the reign of Robespierre. We see Robespierre dressed as a sans-culotte here, putting skulls into an oven. It's a time of graves. Again, we have the symbols of the king, the crosses of the clergy here being trampled upon. The world, the orb, in the hands of a radical, if you like, a crazed radical, destroying everything in his path, bringing death. Robespierre is an interesting person. He's portrayed as one of the great killers and villains of history and modern history. But he would have seen himself as quite pure. It does sound like he was a genuinely honest man. He believed himself to be an incorruptible revolutionary, that he couldn't be bought, that he would stay true to the values of the revolution no matter what. He genuinely believed that the revolution was under threat and had to do whatever it took to defend the revolution. He was a lawyer, and he's a very gifted public speaker. Ironically, at the end of his life, when he's put on trial for his crimes, which were pretty much imagined and his rivals invented it, he was given the opportunity to speak in his own defence. But because he was unwell, he'd lost his voice. And so when he went to speak to try and save his own life, this gifted speaker could not actually find the words wouldn't come out, and he was mocked as he was condemned to death, saying that the words, he was choking on his own words, that he was a liar. Probably a bit harsh, very cruel ending. During a reign of terror, France became a dictatorship. The Constitution of France, this idea of a constitutional monarchy in which governments have to defend people's rights and there are limits on government power, the August decrees, if you like. This is suspended, in inverted commas, that it may not ever start again. The rights that are laid out in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen were overlooked and suspended. So it's worth thinking about the kind of rights that are in there and the way they're taken away. People can be locked up without trial. People can get executed. That the government is not there to protect people. The military is not there to protect people. It becomes an instrument of terror. Laws were passed by the convention that allowed juries to convict people without any evidence whatsoever, and we can see an image of a courtroom here where angry mobs of committee members are gathered before a tribunal, and we have standing up here the shouting of accusations against the defendant. In the background here, a slight criticism, the man with his pants down, again representing the sans-culottes. Later on, laws were passed by the convention that allowed committees to imprison people and execute them without even having a trial. So it moved from you don't need evidence to convict someone to you don't actually even need a trial. It'll just happen. And during this period of time, depending on which historical source you look at, we see the death of 15 to 17,000 people. So often I just say 16,000. An example of a law. These are the type of laws that were passed. This is the famous law of 22 per aisle, and per aisle was a revolutionary month. They created their own calendars and everything. You can see highlighted here, and you might want to hit pause and have a look at some of them, the type of offences that were death sentences. Anyone who is trying to destroy freedom, either by force or cunning. They want to re-establish the monarchy, or they want to criticise the National Convention. If they're said to be betraying the Republic, if they're writing letters to someone who's considered an enemy, if they've stopped supplies getting to Paris, think of the bread shortages that are going on, that in some way they've supported the enemies of France, they've sheltered a conspirator or a member of the aristocracy, they've in some way corrupted, they've criticised patriotism, they've deceived people, they've discouraged revolutionaries, they've spread false rumours and news. And these people had to be arrested straight away and taken before the magistrate. It was every citizen's right to report those people. Duty, if you like. When we look at France at this time, we can see where most of the executions are taking place. And we'll pick up that map in a moment.